Welcome to the 2019 Angler Spotlight Series presented by Godfather's Pizza and MS Propane. We look back at 2019, we took a look at Chad Davison. He caught over 63 pounds throughout that season, over 6 tournaments. At Table Rock Lake, our first stop, he was 28th place out of 91 boats.
Got 3 fish, Chad Davison. Last year finished second in Angler of the Year points. 8.75, 8.75. Good job, Chad.
At our second stop, Lake of the Ozarks, he was 39th out of 71 boats.
I just want to go out and have fun, try and catch some fish. I'm gonna head down towards the dam and probably fish in the back of some creeks down there and see if I can get something going, and after that may bounce around between the creeks and the main lake and just see what happens.
On Palmy, come in 16th place. Stockton, he fell a little bit, went back to 31st place, but Stockton was a unique situation because the water come up really high. It was in the bushes, it was way back in trees. You could fish far as back as you wanted to. And the week prior, those fish moved up to in them bushes, in them trees, super shallow. And for some reason, the day of the tournament, those fish started moving back out. Could have been due to their pulling water. And a lot of the guys that were fishing deep diving crankbaits with crank wraps on it, motion fishing jigs out deeper, that's where they caught them, and that's where the top guys, they come in the money. And Chad, we caught up with Chad Davison that day, and he was flipping bushes. He was flipping way back in some gnarly stuff, but he still caught them. May have caused him, that may have what caused him to get to 31st place, but again, he still figured him out, still caught him on Stockton. Truman, he got 21st place. That was a 2-day
5-fish limit, Chad Davison.
Tournament. And I think he come in with over 20-some pounds, combined the days. And in championship at Lake of the Ozarks, he got a top 10. He got 10th place and come home with some money and come in 9th Championship Marine Angler of the Year. So going into 2020 season, Chad's going to catch them. Table Rock, he's going to catch them. Grant, he's going to catch them. All these other lakes, he's going to catch them. And I think he's a force to be reckoned with. You know he's going to catch them when he shows up. And he's a very good angler, very versatile angler, coming from Columbia, driving to Table Rock, driving to Bull Shoals, driving to Grand Lake. These lakes are quite far for him. So the knowledge, understanding that he has of a lot of these lakes and be able to put a pattern together and be able to catch fish, no question, 2020, he's coming after it. And wouldn't be surprising if he's up there in the top in a lot of these tournaments and does a very better job at Championship Marine and Snow Terminators Angler of the Year next year, which is valued at about $1,800. So take a look at Chad, follow him throughout the season, and thank you, MS Propane and Godfather's Pizza, for sponsoring this Angler Spotlight.
My name's Chad Davison. I'm from Columbia, Missouri.
You have other hobbies you like to do other than fishing?
Fishing takes up almost all of my time that I have to spare, but I do like to golf occasionally. But usually when it's a good time to golf, it's a good time to go fishing, so I don't play much golf.
So background of fishing, though, how did you get started in tournament fishing?
I started fishing tournaments when I was in college. I was about 22 years old, and I just came across a flyer at a tackle shop about Little Dixie Bass Club in Columbia, Missouri, and I called them up and joined the club. I'd never fished a tournament before, really knew nothing about tournament fishing, and that's kind of how I got the foundation of my knowledge, is fishing with those guys and just a small bass club.
Now, do any of them guys fish any other tournaments like that you fish now, or are they still up around here?
Little Dixie Bass Club eventually kind of fizzled out. A lot of those same guys were fishing another club called Ozark Mountain Anglers. And about 10 years after I started fishing Little Dixie, I started fishing Ozark Mountain Angler Bass Club, and a lot of the same guys and we're still fishing that club now, so that's been a big part of me learning how to fish.
Any influencers that you want to talk about that, you know, either a younger kid that got you involved in fishing, even up to today?
Bill Brumbaugh is somebody who I started fishing with in Little Dixie Bass Club, and eventually partnered with him in Ozark Mountain Angler Bass Club, and he and I have been partners for 7 years, and during those 7 years we won Angler of the Year 5 times, and I attribute a large amount of our success to Bill and his knowledge. He's a very technical and scientific angler. He analyzes everything, and I've really learned to read conditions and really look at details on baits and casting angles and just everything like that. I've learned from Bill, so he's been a huge influence for me.
And did you start out with a small boat, John boat, or did you kind of jump right into these bigger fiberglass type boats?
Yeah, when I joined Little Dixie Bass Club, 25 years ago, I bought a 17-foot aluminum bass boat with a 40-horse motor, and I used that for several years and eventually graduated up to a smaller fishing ski. And then my first real, what I consider be a bass boat, was a 95 Champion I bought when I was in Ozark Mountain Angler Bass Club, and I fished out of that boat for 12 or 13 years, and it was a great boat for me. Just last year I bought this 21-foot Ranger, and it's a great boat. So it's just been kind of a gradual progression, getting a bigger and bigger boat. My natural tendency is to fish pretty slow. I have a tendency to find an area and kind of pick it apart. I sometimes have to try to force myself to cover water because that doesn't come naturally to me, and sometimes you can get kind of bogged down in one area, and it's kind of hard to practice for a tournament when you're fishing one creek for half the day. So I kind of have to force myself to speed up, but I can consider myself a versatile angler. I am comfortable doing a lot of different things. I'm not afraid to fish slow with a jig or soft plastics, or I like to throw a spinnerbait or a crankbait or top water. In the wintertime I love throwing an A-rig and a jerkbait. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at any one technique, but I feel like I can adapt and catch them a lot of different ways. For 2019, 2019 was kind of a struggle for me. I never really found in any tournament a pattern that was working extremely well for me. So as a result, I did a lot of different things. I was always I felt like I was junk fishing a lot. I know I caught quite a few fish on a spinnerbait, but every tournament was a little bit different. Some tournaments I was, for example, the Stockton tournament, I spent a lot of time pitching plastics to flooded cover. And, at Truman, I was able to catch fish a lot of different ways there. I threw plastics, top waters, spinnerbaits, crankbaits. So it just kind of depended on the tournament. But really, I wouldn't say there was any technique that was dominant for me. I really mixed it up a lot. Well, Lake of the Ozarks in the pre-spawn is always a fun time for me. I've had a lot of success throwing the A-rig in the past. I'm always going to have that on the deck, but I still enjoy throwing the traditional baits like a jerkbait. I guess the jig is something that is always there if I need to slow down and throw that. But if I can, I'm probably going to throw a jerkbait and an A-rig. And also in the pre-spawn, probably a little bit later as the water temperatures start to warm a little bit more, I really like to throw, Omega makes a jig called a mock-up jig that's a swing head type jig. You can put a creature bait like a D-bomb or a sweet beaver on there and fish it kind of like a crankbait, bumping it on the bottom. And that's something that will draw a lot of strikes when the fish are less aggressive, but you're still able to cover water. So that's something I always have in the back of my mind during the pre-spawn also.